And this is the 15th session on protection after Ramadan, of which about 5 sessions we held on tests that Allah Ta'ala puts on us to test our iman and patience, fortitude. And then we talked about our enemies, which are also tests, shaitan, and how to guard against shaitan, our baser instincts, and how to guard against our baser instincts, very briefly. The whisperings of evil people and how to guard against that. And we talked about safeguarding from the fatal attraction of dunya and how to and what to do about that. And then, as additional measures, as protection after Ramadan, we talked about the effort of seeking knowledge, the effort of dawat, and finally, we started talking about acquiring beautiful character, conduct. There's the 10th session on that, on akhlaq, of which 5 were on, as you can see, 5 were on sabr and shukr, 1 session, forgiveness, 1 session, that's 2, on forbearance, hilm, 2 sessions, that's 4, and then humility, contentment, and tawakkul, 1 session on that, that's 5. And we held 4 sessions on justice so far until last Saturday. So that is 5 and 4, 9. And today is the 10th session on justice. And the next session next Saturday would be the 6th session on justice, and that would complete our topic, protection after Ramadan. That would complete our discussion on akhlaq via 6 sessions on justice. I will, in the beginning, I'll take a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, on summarizing what we discussed so far about justice. In the first session, we talked about the mention of justice and injustice in the Holy Quran, which comes over 200 times. And the meaning of justice, as per Imam Ghazali, justice is to put a thing in its proper place, which is to say, justice is to give each thing its due, at its due time, its due place, and in its due measure. Which implies we must never allow animosity or enmity or ill will against people to be a cause for behaving unjustly or violating their rights. Which also means that we have to restrain ourselves, self-restraint, self-control has to be exerted. And also proactive establishment of justice towards even those who are hostile and belligerent. Nothing to be done out of vengeance. Justice is to like for others what I like for myself. Justice is to not desire even for myself what I do not deserve. Not desire even for myself what I do not deserve. Justice is to not deprive others what is due to them. Justice is that nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. Just a minute. Justice is that nobody is above the law. The animation did not work. Justice is to not kill innocent men, women, children. Justice is to not usurp property wrongfully, grasp property wrongfully. Justice is to conduct war in a humane manner. Justice is to treat prisoners in a dignified manner. Justice is to put the right thing in the right place. And in the second session, we talked also about the various types of categories of justice. Natural justice, ethical justice pertains to self. We'll talk about natural justice in more detail right after this, innate sense of justice. And then ethical justice pertains to self, al-adl. Legal justice ensure equal rights for all. Distributive justice is the equitable distribution of wealth, which has to do with Islamic economic justice. And the fifth category of justice is rectificatory justice, righting wrong and punishing wrongdoing. Natural justice, we are talking about the summary of the second session on justice. Natural justice is what we talked about. Natural justice pertains to the nature or fitra of man as an individual. Thus, people obey Allah not only because He is good, but also because of their innate nature. Their innate nature predisposes them to good and obedience. So there's a natural sense of justice in human beings. Those who disobey Allah, they go against their natural predisposition. Human beings have an innate sense of good and evil. And this is what is mentioned by the creator of human beings in at least 1, 2, 3, 4 verses. Innate sense of good and evil. When justice appeals to innate human nature and reason, it falls in the category of natural justice. Righteous people act out of their pure nature or goodness. Deviant people go against their inner goodness. Human beings naturally find good actions endearing and bad actions abominable, hated or hateful. And they find peace only through submission to Allah Ta'ala. That was the second session, summary of the second session. Summary from the third session on justice, and that was on ethical justice. We'll talk about the remaining 3 in today's session. Ethical justice is concerned with the justice of the soul, which seeks to bring us to the mean between the extremes of vice and virtue. We neither go to the extreme of vice nor to the extreme of virtue. We try to pursue a middle path, bring moderation, as the Almighty mentions in a verse, the near meaning of which is pursue the middle path as you have been commanded. Justice does not demand everything for the self only, but also for others. One must be just to oneself to be just to others. If one cannot be just to oneself, one cannot be just to others. Justice to the self implies the affirmation and fulfillment of the covenant between the soul and Allah. Justice is a condition whereby a person is in his right and proper place, which means we should not be where we should not be. We should be where we should be, which means we should not be in the bar. That's not a place that can allow us to keep away from wine. We should not be in a brothel. We should not be in the company of bad people. We should be where we should be. And we should be in the environment that fosters our iman and good deeds. One allows one's carnal desires to dominate one's rational soul. If one allows one's animalistic desires, our base desires, to dominate our rational soul, we do wrong to others and wrong to our own self. Al-Isfahani, an 11th century Islamic scholar, states, the most unjust person is the one who wrongs his own soul, his own relatives, and then the rest of mankind. The most just among people is the one who is just to all people, his relatives, and then with his soul. Al-Isfahani also states, be just to yourself first before you can be just to others. In the last session, which was the fourth session on justice, what I did was I did not explore new territory or new information on justice. I simply summarized what we discussed up until that point. So the last session was summary of basically what we discussed up until this point. I talked about that in some more detail. Now today's session, the fifth session on justice. And in today's session, we'll talk about, after talking about natural justice and ethical justice, we'll talk about legal justice, and we'll talk about distributive justice, and we will talk about rectificatory justice. Legal justice, the essential feature of justice is equality, equal rights for all, the basic condition of communal life. Equal rights for all creates the basic condition for communal life to exist. You can live in a community, in a commune. Justice applied within the political and judicial domains, that is legal justice. The law will be just if it aligns with the idea of what is right. In this sense, justice does not mean the moral value of a person. That falls under ethical justice. As already mentioned, ethical justice is of a higher value as it is not legislated by human law, but by the Almighty. It is a moral action. Ethical justice is a moral action that stems spontaneously from a soul that is committed to what is right and has conquered its baser desires, animalistic desires. Al-Isfahani states, he who cannot rule over his own soul is not suitable to rule over others. For this reason, Allah Ta'ala rebukes unworthy men who wish to rule over other people, commanding good and prohibiting evil without having reformed themselves. So we have to rule ourselves before we can rule others. He declares, Allah Ta'ala, do you command others to be righteous and forget yourself while you recite the book? In other words, one has to be exemplary in character because the politics of self should precede the politics of society. After having talked about legal justice, next we talk about distributive justice, and finally about rectificatory justice. Distributive justice implies economic justice, equitable distribution of wealth in society. It's not equal distribution of wealth, but equitable distribution. For justice to be applied as a principle of equality, one must assume that all humans are equal in the eye of the law. Allah Ta'ala has commanded justice, but has not specified how it should be implemented in all cases. Justice is essentially about equality. The Quran recognizes differences in people's talents and skills in the following verses. He has made you successors in the land and elevated some in rank above others. So he has created difference. And he may try you by what he has given you. So as to try you, actually, basically, that's the idea. He has made some people rich, he has made some people poor, he has made some people powerful, he has made some people weak. These are all tests for the rich. The test is, does the rich person understand that the wealth he has been given, in that wealth is share after meeting his needs. There is share for those who are deprived or disadvantaged, the poor. There's share for them that Allah Ta'ala is sending through them, the rich people. Do they recognize that? And do they convey what is due to the poor people? Is their test. For the rich people, for the powerful people, the test is, do they serve those under them? For the educated people, do they serve those under them? So all these differences that Allah Ta'ala has created in human beings, giving some people, putting some people above others, is to test them. How do they serve those who are under them, who are disadvantaged, who are distressed, who are oppressed, who are suppressed? And they will be questioned. There's no doubt about that. He's trying us. These are tests for us. And further, Allah Ta'ala says, Allah has favored some of you over others in the provision of means. He has given more to some people, less to some people. For the rich, that's the test. Do they share? And for the poor, the test is, do they ask Allah or do they ask people? Do they extend their hands to people? And for the poor people, for the rich people, the test is, do they find out who are in need and help those who are in need? The differences pertain to people's spiritual rank and worldly position that Allah Ta'ala puts some people in, give them leadership, for example. But basically, the difference is in terms of taqwa, how much God-fearing we are. However, when it comes to relationships with others, which is called muamalat, then all people should be treated equally before the law. A crime is a crime, whether committed by someone of high or low rank, a religious or non-religious person, a rich or poor person. It's crime. All people are equally accountable, no matter what their race, color, or creed. There's no difference in the eye of the law. The following Quranic verse is usually cited to connote the equality of all human beings. O mankind, surely we have created you from a male and a female and made you tribes and nations that you might know one another. Surely the noblest of you in the sight of Allah is the one who is the most pious among you. The verse refers to the equality of all human beings and only identifies the superiority of one person over another in terms of piety, taqwa. The verse addresses all of humankind, O mankind. And on the day of judgment, Allah Ta'ala will not ask about status or lineage, but only about one's piety. And from that stems good deeds. Equality is normally regarded as fundamental to distributive justice, but one should also consider differences in individual needs. The government should provide primary needs like food, shelter, and clothing to all its citizens, especially those who are disabled, disadvantaged, those who do not have opportunities, invalid, the old. It's the responsibility of the government. The rich must share a portion of their wealth to benefit the poor. Islam encourages the perpetual circulation of wealth via zakat and the perpetual investment of wealth for a noble cause. Islam teaches that all wealth belongs to Allah, and what we possess is only a trust from Allah to be used, not abused, not misused. Wealth should be spent lawfully and should not be hoarded, and a portion of it is the right of the poor and a test for the wealthy. In Surah Baqarah, Allah Ta'ala says the near meaning, those who spend their wealth in charity day and night, secretly and openly, their reward is with their Lord, and there will be no fear for them, nor will they grieve. Mark the words, charity. Allah Ta'ala is not talking about zakat. He mentions about zakat separately using the term zakah, and he mentions that 32 times. Charity he mentions, I think, about 19 times. So this is not zakat. So in other words, charity means going beyond zakat. Zakat is the obligatory part. We have to give away if we fall in the nisab. That means if we have wealth equal to 7.5 tolas of gold, we have wealth above that, then we have to pay on a certain date, and one has to fix that date during the year. So on that date, if somebody has wealth equal to more than wealth, which is more than 7.5 tolas of gold, in terms of not only just gold, but gold, silver, and what is called liquid assets, cash, bank balance, and so on and so forth. So if all of that amounts to, the value of all of that amounts to the value of 7.5 tolas of gold, actually more than that, 7.5 tolas of gold, whatever is the value of that. If I have on a certain date that I fix for myself during the year, and every year I calculate my wealth on that same date. So if I have more than the value of 7.5 tolas of gold in terms of liquid assets that I just now mentioned, then I have to pay 2.5%. That is obligatory. But charity is what is beyond that. And Allah Ta'ala mentions charity, spending in the path of Allah so many times. And so that's the first word we should mark, and the other is day and night. If it is zakat, then we would not be spending or giving away zakat day and night. It is charity that we can extra option, more than zakat, that we can spend day and night. Secretly and openly, their reward is with their Lord, and there will be no fear for them, nor will they grieve. So the word used is charity, not zakat. And can you distribute zakat day and night? You just cannot. So he's talking about spending more than our zakat, actually. And there are many verses, as I said, in the Holy Quran and ahadith on charity. 19 times charity is mentioned in 19 verses of the Holy Quran. And he also mentions uses the term spend. And zakat is mentioned at least 32 times. Abu Umama reported Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as saying, "O son of Adam, it is better for you if you spend your surplus wealth. It is better for you if you spend your surplus wealth. So whatever we don't need, and we have wealth beyond that, beyond our need, that is surplus wealth, and Allah Ta'ala is saying via the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is what we call hadith Qudsi, where it says, Allah Ta'ala says, and he normally starts with, O son of Adam, it is better for you if you spend your surplus wealth, but if you withhold it, it is evil for you. It is evil for you. There is, however, and after that, what is basically mentioned in the remaining part of the hadith is, if there is some contingency expenditure for which we save, something that might come up, some emergency needs, or saving for the education of the child, that is allowed. Beyond that, whatever is left, we should spend as much as possible our surplus wealth for our own. And actually, you see, this is something that is our investment for the hereafter. We are not spending. We are investing for the hereafter, and Allah Ta'ala will reward us many times over. He has given the money, and we spend His money for our own benefit, and it's not going away from us. We might think, oh, I spend this money. It's not going away from us. It is investing for our eternal life. The concentration of wealth in the hands of the rich is undesirable, and hoarding of wealth is condemned, as Allah states. The concentration of wealth, undesirable; hoarding of wealth, undesirable, condemned, so that the wealth does not concentrate in the hands of the rich among you. So he's discouraging us. And then he says in another verse, to those who accumulate gold and silver and do not spend in the way of Allah, announce the news of painful punishment for them. Do not accumulate gold and silver. Spend in the way of Allah. Otherwise, know that there is painful punishment waiting. In commenting on the latter verse, Al-Isfahani states, Allah has prohibited hoarding the dirham and not putting it into active use in economic affairs. Prohibited hoarding. Hoarding gold and silver is like locking away rulers, not allowing rulers, and thereby preventing them from managing people's livelihood. That means creating opportunities for them, not allowing rulers to create opportunities for them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he who drinks from a silver jug actually drinks from the fire of hell. Jugs and plates made of gold and silver reduce the amount of money in circulation, and so stifle trade and growth and prosperity, and creating opportunities for the poor. So natural justice, innate sense of justice, ethical justice pertains to self. Other legal justice, which is to ensure equal rights for all. That's the goal of legal justice. Distributive justice, what is the goal? Equitable distribution of wealth. Rectificatory justice, righting injustice, crime, and punishment. So now we talk about the last one, the last category of justice, rectificatory justice. Rectificatory justice is concerned with righting injustice. In Western philosophy, Aristotle's view is the classical statement on this kind of justice. Rectificatory justice is concerned with rectifying transactions where someone was treated unfairly and therefore was treated unjustly. When one has inflicted harm on another and has thereby profited, it is the aim of rectificatory justice to punish the perpetrator through a fine or imprisonment, depending on the severity of the offense. However, there should also be a scope for the rehabilitation of the offender and compensation for the victim. Al-Isfahani adopted rectificatory justice and integrated it into Islamic theory of justice. This is a form of legal justice and therefore must be realized through the courts, not through personal revenge. It is a universal norm for courts of law to assume a person is innocent until proven guilty, beyond doubt. If a person wants to take justice into his own hands, his verdict would be based on anger and not reason, vengeance. So it may not be equal to the severity of the offense, and therefore we have to take recourse to the court system. If brought to the court, a judge decides on the kind of punishment, and a judge decides, hopefully, much more objectively than the victim, whether it is for minor crimes such as theft or more serious crimes such as murder. In the case of murder, the court must prove whether the murder was premeditated, in which case the punishment is the highest, or whether the murder was out of anger, spur of the moment, something that was not premeditated, in which case the punishment would be of a lesser scale. Conclusion. My presentation is based on the article More Than Just Law, the idea of justice in the Quran by Dr. Yasin Muhammad, which is based on the book by Raghib al-Isfahani, Al-Zariya ila Makarim al-Sharia, which he wrote in the 11th century. Time does not allow me to conclude this session, or actually the presentations in the 5 sessions on justice, actually 4 sessions, because one session was summarizing what we discussed earlier. The time doesn't allow me today to conclude, but to do justice to this topic, I will conclude next week. That means the 6th session on Islamic concept of justice, and then we will move ahead onto other topics. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the understanding. May He grant us the tawfiq to realize that Allah Ta'ala has created. In one verse, it says that the foundation of Allah's creation is justice, is the foundation of Allah's creation. And He expects us to be just, to not transgress, to not oppress, to do the right thing at the right time, to put the right thing in the right place, to put the cap in the head and not in the foot, to put the socks in the feet and not in the head, to put the right person in the right place. He expects us to be just as the best of His creation, as the best of all the ummah that Allah Ta'ala has sent under different prophets. He has sent us as ummah of the best prophet and as the best of ummah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Kuntum khayra ummati ukhrijat lin-nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. You are the best of nations, selected from mankind. Ukhrijat lin-nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf. You will call people towards the good. Wa tanhauna 'anil munkar, and you will stop them from evil doing. Wa tu'minuna billah, and you will bring faith in Allah. So the best of nations has to be best in all aspects, in all spheres, in all ways, in all manners. Most importantly, in terms of justice. So we will conclude next week. May Allah Ta'ala give us understanding of what we heard, myself first and foremost, and to all of us. We will meet inshallah next Saturday. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayka. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.